All right, everybody. Welcome. Good to see you all. How many? There's some new folks here. How many folks? It's your first time here. Excellent. Well, you chose the perfect class for the first one because this is the workshop that I should have done for the first one in the entire series. It's the Introduction to Nature Journaling, but even if you've been journaling for a while, I think you'll find that there's some ideas here that can really help focus and motivate you in doing what you do, and to kind of give you a roadmap how to make nature journaling a more kind of integral part of your life and what you're doing, and kind of give you access to some support systems to make that happen. To get us started, we're actually going to have a discussion here. There's going to be several discussions in this workshop instead of a straight-up lecture. What we're going to be talking about is sort of the practice of nature journaling, why we're doing it, what's in it for you, what motivates you to do that. And we're also going to take a look at sort of, are there things that have in the past, what are the sort of things that make it more difficult for you to do it on the regular basis that you want to do it? It turns out that a lot of people have said at one point to themselves, I'd love to kind of keep a nature journal, and made a start and stopped. And we're going to look at kind of why that is and see if we can break that down and look at things that you can use to motivate you to kind of keep that going. We're then going to take a look at making your own nature journaling kit. A handy kit to bring with you whenever you want to do nature journaling out in the field. And finally, take a look at some logistics of things that make it easier to draw and sketch when you are out there in nature. So this workshop isn't so much, a lot of the ones in the past, it's, here's the anatomy of spiders and how to draw spiders. That sort of a thing. This is sort of a little bit of the bigger picture. Next month, we're starting a 2-month series on really kind of zeroing in on drawing wildflowers. So we'll be back to sort of the our usual fare of really narrowing in on some aspect of drawing. But I thought it would be very useful to kind of step back, take a bigger picture. This will be useful for both folks who are just starting, and again for people who have been doing it for a while. There'll be some new ideas in here that might help you kind of focus. So to begin, I've got two basic questions for you. So why do you want to keep a journal? Or if you are keeping a journal, that is, why are you doing this? Right? What's in it for you? What is your motivation that makes you want to do this? If you are new to this, why do you want to do this? What do you hope to get out of it? What have you seen that is motivating you to come here in the afternoon and join us in this workshop? Or if you're watching from home, why are you pulled to videos on this topic? The second question is this is more appropriate for people who've been doing this for a while. If you already have a journaling practice, what aspect of that would you like to see expanded and developed more? Right? So to make this work, what we're going to do is we're just going to, in a moment, we're going to turn and talk with people who are sitting near us. So in groups of, if we could have you folks here as one kind of conversational cluster, you folks here as another conversational cluster, and you folks here as another conversational cluster. The first thing you're going to do is introduce yourselves to each other. Then let's just, we're going to take a few minutes and as a group just sort of discuss this. What motivates you? What do you see as the advantages of doing this? What do you really hope to get out of it? Are there things that you would like to see yourself be able to develop in it? And are there any questions about the questions? Good. And discuss. Okay, we'll begin to bring our conversation. I hope you got to meet some nice folks. So what's in it for you? Why do you want to keep a journal, or why do you keep a journal? What are your big motivators, or were there any common themes that you heard in your discussion group?
Better memory, even than a photograph.
She said a better memory even than a photograph. So there's actual research on what happens to our memories when we take snapshots. And you send people with cameras through a museum and you have them take photographs of the things that are the most meaningful and really powerful and moving to them. And then you ask them about those. Their memory of what they were looking at is worse than people who were not doing that. Interestingly enough, if you give those people cameras and you tell them to use that camera as a tool to investigate the aspects of something that really interest them, so they're not just kind of going up, that's great, click, that's great, click, but really kind of using it as an investigation tool, their memory is improved by using that camera. But the standard way which we use a camera, either as, here's me in front of the Eiffel Tower. You can't see the Eiffel Tower because it's me. Or just kind of going around, click, 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 click. And now I'm going to remember it forever. It doesn't work. But this is if you've ever kept a journal on a travel experience sometime, you'll find that those moments where you stopped and journaled are locked into the fabric of your memory forever. You've got it. Billy Collins wrote a poem around sort of an experience that he was having, and to sort of describe the way that writing a poem kind of frames and holds that moment beautifully. It's very much the same way that keeping notes of that in your journal with sketches and with writing does. He says, then all the moments of the past began to line up behind that moment, and all the moments to come assembled in front of it in a long row, giving me reason to believe that this was a moment I had rescued from the millions that rush out of sight into a darkness behind the eyes. And even after I've forgotten what year it is and the meaning of money, I will still carry in my pocket the small coin of that moment, minted in the kingdom that we pace through every day. Right? So it's just that it allows you to sort of, you get to decide what goes into the fabric of your long-term memory. So trauma has a direct access, right? Where were you when this traumatic thing happened? You've got sort of a snapshot memory of that, which interestingly enough, is not that accurate. But this actually allows you to choose what you want in your memory. And if you are choosing to pick out the beauty and the joyful parts of your life and journal around those, you become a more resilient person because those memories are more vivid, more a part of you. What's another reason for journaling like this? Why do we do this?
It's more fun to draw outside.
It gets us outside. You go outside. Children in Nature Network's website has all sorts of research that they've kind of cataloged and put up there about the impact on our brains of being outside in nature. It ends up being really good for us. You get yourself out there and you are a happier, more calm, relaxed, joyful person. And this is an excuse to go do that.
Also, we all agree we all love nature.
Mm-hmm.
Some aspect of it. Or everything.
Yeah.
We like to gawk.
We like to gawk. Right? And this is intentional gawking. Right? And that intentional gawking, the focused attention, is a very, very powerful part of it. That by doing this, you are going to get yourself to notice details, aspects of something that the passive gawker would not notice. But by doing this, we think that you can see all the detail of the world around you, that whatever is happening in front of you is open to your senses. It turns out it's not. Your brain is doing all sorts of filtering before things get to your conscious awareness. And this is a way to kind of push things back and notice the details that you otherwise would have missed. Yes?
I find that it helps me to remember puzzles. Because I look at something and I'll be puzzled by what I if I make some sketches or some more notes to go with that, sometimes I can answer the puzzle right away, and other times the answer's not going to come until the next season when I see something similar happening. One example is one day I was looking at some ants climbing a eucalyptus tree, and I was looking really closely at the ants, and I noticed that some of them had a really swollen abdomen, and some of them didn't. And then I thought, well, why is that? And then I noticed that the ones going up the tree did not, and the ones going down the tree did. So then I thought, what is up the tree? You know, and so in that particular day, I was fortunate that I had enough time that I could then look up into the tree and figure out where they're going and what they were collecting when they were on their way down the tree. But you don't always have enough time to follow that through, you know, but it's nice to have some record of some of your puzzles so that you can keep exploring them.
You get a hug for that, man. Oh, man. See, this sort of intentional curiosity, right? Being not just open to observing the world, but really letting yourself playfully explore and wonder. Putting your ideas side by side into a journal really helps you focus and analyze. This is why the journal is an essential tool for every kind of scientist. I don't care if they're a molecular biologist or a marine biologist or whatever they are, they all keep journals of those mysteries and their explorations in that exact same way.
I loved it when you said in one of your other classes, write down your questions.
So yeah, so it's
sometimes I forget what my questions were, and now I'm starting to think, write down my questions, and I keep looking for their answers.
Yeah, and that dignifies the question. Instead of being a question being something that we hide from. Usually the things which we don't know, that's an embarrassment. But for a biologist, it's like, I came up with this great question today, you know, and then all their friends are happy. They sit around, dinner talking about this great question that they came up with. And that makes the world a much more interesting place. The things that you folks have just been discussing, it's interesting. I didn't hear anybody say, I'm doing this because I want to get good at drawing pictures. If your focus is those things that you just described, you are way ahead of the curve. Because what tears people down and makes this inaccessible for most people is most people think, I have to be good at drawing pictures in order to do this. And if I'm not good at drawing pictures, I can't do this. And so they don't try. And they never have a chance for those things to develop. What I heard you say are that I am sketching and observing to help me notice things, to help me remember them, and to help me be more intentionally curious about what I'm seeing. If those three things are foremost in your head, honestly, not just giving lip service to it, and you're using drawing as a tool to help you investigate all those things, what's going to happen is you're going to make hundreds, then thousands of drawings. And your drawings are going to get much, much better because you're making hundreds and thousands of drawings. The ability to draw is the caboose that comes along behind the engine of wondering and wanting to remember and being curious. And it will come automatically. Even if you don't take any of these workshops or buy any book, you don't need any special pencil. Just by doing it a lot, you'll get better at it. What we want to do is to try to, how can I live in a way that I am making those tools more accessible to me on a regular basis? How can I make the habits in my life to be journaling all the time? Mary Oliver, for a long time, had a habit of getting up really early in the morning, going out to a pond near her house, little notebook in hand, little pencil, and that practice informed her poetry and the way she walked in the world. If she didn't do that for a day, she felt off, because it was just such an important part of her routines. Think of the routines in your life that you do regularly. Right? Some of these are ones we want to be doing and others aren't. If you're exercising regularly and you don't get out to exercise, it feels wrong, right? It's like, oh, I didn't get my chance. I gotta get out. And maybe that evening you're like, okay, now I've got a chance to go for my run, whatever it is. We are total creatures of habit, and we can harness that to make the things that we want to do work for us. But a lot of people have said to themselves, I want to be drawing. I want to draw, right? So you take an art class, and then you have all the good intentions. You buy all this gear, and then the class ends, and you take all that gear and you put it into a box labeled art supplies on a shelf, right? Does anybody have one of those boxes? Okay. All right. Several boxes. The closet. Right? So just the intention to, oh, this would be nice. It turns out it doesn't work. And what they're not talking about in a lot of those classes is that what we actually have to do is figure out how we make this a habit. So think about the habits that you have. Right? We want to make this nature journaling a part of the fabric of your life. Right? So what has worked for you in making or breaking habits? In either specifically about art or other things that you're doing. What works to allow us to do the things that we want to do? I'm sorry? So schedule out a time to make that work. So she's not just, if you say to, so she's making an appointment with herself to do the things that she wants to do. Right? When I was going to college, little dyslexic me felt overwhelmed by all the stuff I had to do. I had to schedule out a time. On my schedule, I'd put a box around an hour or two. I would write in it, have fun. Right? Otherwise, I wouldn't. Right? Making an appointment with yourself. If you say, I'm going to, well, that's fine, but I've got a job, right? And I'll do that once I've finished all the other things. Yeah, you're going to get to this when you've answered all the emails. Really? All right? It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. If you ever did answer all the emails, you'd just have a chance to collapse in exhaustion. Right? So if you prioritize the things that you really want to have be part of your life, you actually have to schedule them in and make time for them. For me, my best time of being alive and awake and active and creative is early in the day. So I make time for that regularly early in the day. Figuring out where you're going to do that, but intentionally doing it, that's a great idea. What else? What else works for you?
I keep paper and pencil or pen with me all the time, in the car, everywhere, so that I can, because I'm a writer, so anytime I have something, I just write it down.
Great. So she is making the tools that she needs to do this accessible. That could be a kit that you're bringing with you everywhere, or having versions of that around. If you say, I think I'd like to go nature journaling, and oh, I'm going to go to the closet, open it up, move the boxes, and get down, oh, this one, okay, there's a journal, and then there's that nice pencil that I got, and oh, my daughter moved it over to here, all that's negative reinforcement, and you are not going, you have to fight through that in order to go journaling. If you could go like, I think I'd like to go journaling. Go outside, you've just made it so much easier. So much easier. So how can we get the tools that we need to be accessible? That's really, really, really good. What else works?
Working with other people who want to do the same thing.
Right. So statistically, if I want to exercise, if I want to go on a diet, if I want to stop smoking or drinking, statistically, I'm going to fail. When I decide I'm going to go do this, and I'm making a New Year's resolution, what we do with our New Year's resolutions is we break them in the first month. Right? If I do it on my own, I'm going to fail. Statistically, if I do this with the buddy system, right, or with a community, I'm going to be successful. Right? So and this is why groups like AA are successful. A huge part of what they have, what they're leveraging, is they're leveraging the buddy system and accountability in a community. Regularly, you're going to be getting back with these other people who are doing the same sort of thing. You have the same sorts of issues. You can talk about these things. You're not alone. And it helps you, gives you the strength to do the things that you want to do in your life. That is absolutely huge. You need a nature journaling Shanga, a community that is supporting you in doing what you're doing. What else?
Don't have high expectations or criticize the results.
All right. So if you say, like, grown-ups often want to, when they want to do something, we want to start at the top. Right? We don't want any process between here and there. All right? And we take the kind of fully developed skill and see that's the goal. That's what I want. If I'm not doing that, I can't do this. Forget it. As opposed to, it's interesting, when you folks were talking about why you're doing this, all of the things you were mentioning were process-related things, not product. But very often when we look at the product, we go like, oh no, that's not Rembrandt, therefore I can't do this. Right? All right? I'm not Rembrandt now. Right? Turns out that this ability to draw, sketch, the ability to observe, the ability to really develop deep questions, those are all skills, and they get better with practice. The more you do them, the better you get at it. We have this myth about them that they're this gift, that some people are born artists, no. You say, like, you're this violin virtuoso. Oh, you're so lucky to have that gift. Right? No, that person gets up every day and they practice the violin. Right? You tell them that you're so lucky to have that gift, they will take their little bow and whap you with it. Right? Because it's work. That's what they do. Right? And this journaling is the same way. You talked about how you can have this voice that tears you down. Right? We can have this. How many people have ever had a run-in with their inner critic? Right? What does your inner critic say? You're not good enough. You can't do this. Could have done better.
Here's where you made a mistake.
Yeah. Oh, like, right? And what does that make you feel like doing? Giving up. Right? So when they're just there slamming you, we give it up. Human beings have a negativity bias. Right? Negative things stick with us. I can say 100 nice things about you. I make one comment going, I don't really like that sweater. Right? That's what's going to be sticking with you. Right? You're like, oh, I didn't like my sweater. Right? You go to your performance evaluation, and you're like you're going, okay, the yes but is coming anytime there, and when it hits you, like, I'm a failure. Right? No, there were all these positive things. We remember the lousy one. We're having a great day. It's a beautiful day, and you're driving, and then somebody cuts in front of you, like, that's what you remember for the rest of the afternoon, and it kind of throws you off. There's actually a survival advantage to focusing on these negative things. Like something seems wrong and bad. This could be the tiger sneaking up, time to climb up a tree. There's a survival advantage to focusing on the negative things. Right? But in the 21st century, this just throws us off. Right? There aren't those tigers around anymore. And now we take that kind of tiger energy and we invoke this guy, right? the inner critic who's like, oh no, right? You are, what is it? You can't do this. Who do you think you are? You're not worthy, right? You're like, oh, you want to draw? Well, maybe you can get better with time, but you didn't start early enough. All this like. And what this does, it just makes you close that book, or has anybody ever torn a page out of a journal? Like, I can't do this. Didn't look good. Right? Early on in my journaling, I would, if I didn't like something, I'd tear it out of my journal. I would end up with these journals that were literally that thick. Right? And it totally derailed me. And it made it no fun to pick up my pencil. Right? I no longer tear those pages out. And by focusing on the exact things that you were talking about, if you move the goalpost from, I want to make a pretty picture, to, I want to observe, I want to remember, I want to wonder. then if you do a drawing and you notice something that you otherwise would not have noticed, that drawing is successful. And it's one thing to say that, it's another to really believe it. Because of this negativity bias, you're going to have this tendency to go like, oh, but the picture doesn't look good. All right? So what you want to do, when you notice, when you have noticed something that you otherwise wouldn't have seen, what you want to do, especially at the start, is really kind of amplify the physiological response you get from doing that right. Right? You're going to want to say to yourself, hey, that actually is really cool that I noticed that. Pause, take a moment, notice that, let it register. Like, you know how a lot of us, like, we've got this armor against compliments? You know, like you give me a compliment and ching, right? We bounce them off. But actually let that positive thing sink in. Just kind of go like, oh, yeah. This is going to help me remember. You know, and I took this time with these ants and look at the questions that came out of that. And really spend time and just let yourself be happy about that. What that's going to do is you're going to reprogram your brain. You're going to reprogram your inner critic from, instead of being this smack you down, to the critic can actually be a useful tool. If your critic, instead of just kind of going, no, right? If you can get that critic to sit down with you and say, you know what? These parts here, that is working really well for you today. That's really successful. Do that again. Your next drawing, that little approach you're taking, that's really working for you. That can be your inner critic voice. You can also have that same critic say, and you know, the next time, and there will be a next time, what I'd like you to do is we're going to just do this part here a little bit differently. Yeah, the next time, all right? That's a way that this critic voice can be very, very helpful. And what this allows you to do, if you retrain your critic, is what's called deliberate practice. And that means that there's a feedback loop that you can gently and calmly and peacefully pay attention to between what you're seeing and what you're doing that allows you to get better. So there's this sort of one misinterpretation of, people have heard of like the 10,000 hour rule of getting mastery at something. So by the way, you don't need 10,000 hours to get really, really good at drawing, right? If you haven't drawn since elementary school and you start now, in 1 year, you're going to see such improvement that your friends are going to be going, oh man, you're so lucky to have that gift, all right? So 1 year, you throw yourself into it, you're going to see radical, dramatic improvement. But one of the misinterpretations people have of this sort of this 10,000 hour rule of kind of getting mastery at something is that, first of all, they think that that means you have to do that much to really be getting positive feedback from it. The other is you just do it and that happens. It turns out that if you just take a stick and you practice golf like that, right, you really don't get better at it if you do it for 10,000 hours.
You get better at doing it that way.
Yes, you get really good at, like, you know, clearing weeds, right? You become an expert weed whacker, right? But if there's a feedback loop, either from other people, right, or yourself, you can get what's called deliberate practice, and that means that, you know, as you're going along, you're paying attention and using that to iteratively change the approach that you have to doing what you're doing. And so that's a way of retraining our heads to think about what we're doing. So the next time you feel this kind of inner critic going, no, you just realize, like, okay, all right, so first of all, you want to spot it and go like, okay, there's that inner critic kind of tearing me down. I want to help retrain this character. So the best way to do that is just to remind your critic, actually, what I'm doing today is not about making pretty pictures. What I'm doing today is I'm trying to observe things more deeply, or help me remember, or get myself to wonder more deeply about the world around me. And I'm approaching this, I'm using drawing as a tool like a scientist to help me notice things that I otherwise wouldn't have seen. A powerful way of getting your brain to change the way it thinks about a drawing. You start to do a drawing. Try this the next time you're doing a drawing. You're starting to do a drawing, and you kind of go say to yourself, like, I don't like the way this drawing is coming out. Right? Instead of going, oh no, and reaching for the eraser or tearing out the page, is just go, okay, I'm going to get my brain to think about this in a different way. turn it into a diagram. The same thing, just turn it into a diagram. And go, instead of making a pretty picture as my goal, I'm going to go for a density of information here. And start drawing little arrows and lines and boxes around things and little lines coming out saying that this part is bluish green down here fading to red, right? And this part was shorter fuzz than this part here. Start to write on the same page. And with this page with arrows and lines and writing takes on a dramatically different feel to it. You sort of feel like it's this sort of exercise in your brain thinking about something, as opposed to the focus as being on you see how just having the words in here changes the way you feel about this? Right? Try that. It is the best journal first aid. Because not only does it, if you're getting a picture and you say, I don't like this picture, by having a density of information, you make that entire page really, really interesting in a different way. So it saves the page, but the other thing that it saves is your relationship to what you're looking at. Because all of a sudden it pulls you back into really intentionally making observations again, instead of kind of going down this, oh no, not a pretty picture rabbit hole. It's a very, very powerful way. My brother taught me this, right? Very powerful way of journal first aid. Right? And so now, sometimes I find that turning something into a diagram is so much fun. Very often now when I sit down, I'm trying to make a diagram from the get-go, rather than thinking about a pretty picture. And that just takes all the pressure off. And it turns out when the pressure is off, it's easier for the drawing to flow. So, and this is all to say that the more you do, the better and better and better it's going to get. I guarantee it. The single most powerful thing you can do to get better at, if you want to get better at drawing, right? The most powerful thing you can do is to draw a lot. For everybody here, let's just sort of think for a moment. Roughly, how many drawings did you do this last month? How many drawings did you do this last month? All right. How many people did 2 or more? Okay. How many people did 5 or more? 10 or more? 20 or more? Yeah. 30 or more? No. Right? But you are our champ. Right? So, what's your name? Nabiha. All right, so what we want to do is you want to move from where you are to more where Nabiha is. All right? If you want this drawing to come, you just have to start making more drawings. And what you're doing is you're literally changing the structure of your brain by making more drawings. You are, on a neurological level, what you're doing is you are, by repeating this task, you're training your brain to lay down neurons in pathways that connect your eye and your hand. The more you do it, the bigger this pathway becomes. There's a wonderful juggling study where they taught a bunch of college undergraduates to juggle, and they did fMRIs before and after it. And after a couple of weeks of doing this, you could actually see the parts of the brain that were involved in this new activity physically growing larger. So you build your brain, right? The other way of thinking about it is you need to show up enough and regularly enough to show the muse that you mean it, right? You do that, and she's going to be there for you, right? But you have to show her that you mean it, right? So as you do more practice, it gets better and better, and it is not. It's not a smooth curve. There are plateaus and breakthroughs, and plateaus and breakthroughs. The more you are drawing, the shorter the plateau. So you'll be kind of bopping along, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself, oh, wow, you've popped up to a whole new level. And if you look at people's art that they're posting on the Nature Journal Club, you'll sort of see people kind of bopping along, and all of a sudden stuff will come out. You're like, holy smoke, that's you? Pow! Right? But there's also a very interesting thing that happens on this curve. does anybody know how it feels to be right here? What is the experience to be right here? That's where he says frustrated. If you've ever felt, we've all felt frustration in our artwork, right? Frustration is a regular part of this process. And what the frustration is, so the frustration is right before the next breakthrough. And the reason you feel frustrated is because you are executing the skill at this level, but you can visualize things up on this level. And the difference between those, the cognitive dissonance between those two things, that's what causes the frustration. But you need to be able to visualize where you're going in order to get there. That's why professional athletes, they visualize the perfect throw again and again. They lay there in bed kind of going, I'm going to come out of the gate and this is how I'm going to turn my skis, and they kind of visualize going through the whole thing. And then they get out and they can do it. You have to be able to visualize it in order to do it. So that difference is what causes that frustration. Yes, you've got a question or a thought or an idea. Yeah, so the critic, you'll be hearing, right? He says you're going to be hearing a lot from the inner critic at this point, like because he's right, because the critic can see up here, right? It's going like, look, you're not doing that, right? So what's interesting is when a lot of people feel that frustration, that's what motivates them to stop. That's where they stop. They go, I can't do this, right? I'm not there. But they're actually just a few drawings away from that point, and that's where they stop. So when you feel that frustration, don't let that be something that motivates you to stop. That's actually a bell of mindfulness saying you are on the path. A few more drawings, and let's see what it's like when we're up there looking back down. Right? So if you want to get better at this faster, the more you do, the better you get, the faster you're going to get there. It's really a numbers game. It's just a numbers game. That numbers game with that intentional, deliberate practice of gently letting yourself look at it. What can I improve next time? And there will be a next time. And what is really working here for me? You let yourself, if you let that process come in gently, that will help you progress and progress and progress and progress. Yes?
I was going to say George Burns said this a long time ago to kind of fit what you're saying. And he said, good, better, best, never let it rest. Get your good better and your better best.
Wait, I'm gonna walk over you because I've got the mic on, and I'm gonna get you to say that again. That was really, really cool. Just in case that didn't come through. So share that with me.
Yeah, George Burns many years ago, and I just remembered it because it was interesting. But okay, so good, better, best. Never let it rest. Get your good better and your better best.
I like it.
Yeah, isn't that kind of neat?
Go, George Burns. Yep. The more you do this, the better it's going to happen. And it never stops, right? There isn't, actually, I don't think there is ever a best, right? There's just whatever's next, right? Each drawing you do is just practice for the next one, right? So this is a drawing I did of an American robin when I was working on my Sierra Nevada project. I was making a field guide to the Sierra Nevada, and I had to paint about 3,000 illustrations of species of plants and things that are up in the Sierra Nevada. So this is the American robin that I did, and that was one of the first drawings that I did. I did my birds at the start. And I was happy with this robin, and I went on and drew plants. And by the time I got done with this project, 6 years later, I had drawn a lot more pictures. And I looked back at this robin and I said, you know what, I just by making more drawings, I was a better drawer. And so I thought, I'm going to redraw my buddy the robin here. So I redid it. It's interesting to kind of compare those two and sort of see, like, same artist, just a few years later. All right, more drawings under your belt. And then a few years after this, I was making a book on how to draw birds. And I looked at this drawing and said, you know what? I'm not really pleased with that one. Let me give it a shot again. And I redrew this bird. All right. And a few years from now, I'll look at this and I'll make another drawing. And I'll have other aspects of this skill under my belt that I don't right now. But it never stops. Every drawing is just practice for the next one. All right. And so, so be gentle with yourself. I couldn't do this without having done that. All right. And the more that I do, the faster and faster it improves. There's another thing that radically improves your ability to learn a new skill. And what it is a psychophysiological mental state that everybody here has probably experienced. Some people call it being in the zone. Right? Other people, runners refer to it as a runner's high. Researchers call it a flow state. And what it is it's actually a measurable brain state where your brain just gets flooded with the most powerful neurotransmitters that your brain can create. The levels of stress hormones drop, and the part of your brain, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex up here, that is where your kind of inner critic hangs out, the amount of blood flow to that section goes. And so your critic is starved for oxygen and goes to sleep. Right? And what happens is you're able to do your best performance. It's more fun. It seems to kind of come out of nowhere. You've all experienced this state in one form or another. Right? Where have you ever sort of been in one of these states where you're kind of so involved in something that time completely drops away? Right? Computer programmers late at night kind of get into this zone where they're just like, right? And they're just completely unaware of time, and it's pleasurable, and you're like where's this coming from? Has anybody ever gotten so lost in a conversation the time just vanished? Right? Where else have you experienced this? Playing music. Right? Movies. Or being lost in a really good book. You're there, or a theater production. You're completely unaware that this theater has the most uncomfortable seats in the world until it's time for the intermission. And you're like, right? But you were just like, literally on the edge of your seat in this timeless state. You were in a flow state, right? And it turns out that you can intentionally put yourself into these flow states and make them happen more often for you. And in these flow states, learning is roughly cut in half, the time it takes to learn something. They're studying this with not just sort of, casually artsy people. The Army's crazy into this. And their sniper school is now all about how do you get somebody into a flow state so that you can cut the time that it takes to learn the skill in half. Right? So at the Military Research Institution at DARPA, they're studying these flow states. And here's what they've found. There are several different conditions that help us get into flow state. Well, the Army is doing something slightly different. They're trying to help us get into these flow states by actually putting an electromagnetic pulse through the brain. But here are the things that help you kind of get into a flow state. And you look at this list, and it looks like I've cherry-picked this to match something with nature journaling, and I haven't. We are doing an activity that is absolute gold for getting us into flow states. So things that focus your attention, right? Clear goals where you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, right? And when we start, you guys talked about what your goals were those the observing, the remembering, the wondering. You've got clear goals to yourself. We've talked about deliberate practice, how to kind of retrain your inner critic, right? So there's a feedback loop between what you're doing and how you're doing it. You're in a stimulus-rich environment. Hey, we're out in nature, right? Where we can use all our senses. The last one is really interesting, this idea of a challenge-skill balance. And what this means is that the sweet spot for kind of getting your flow on is when you are pushing yourself just a little bit outside of your comfort zone, right? But you don't want to just sort of do the same old familiar thing, but you're going to push yourself just a little bit. So you're just a little bit outside of your safety net, and taking a risk, actually being out there and taking a risk, helps you kind of get into this zone. Then what you can do, so these states help you when you're journaling be in this flow state. You can also, just by your routines, have things that help your brain go, oh, what are we doing here? We're about to go get into flow. So for me, I find that I am now getting in these flow states all the time when I'm out there journaling. So when I'm out there, if I'm going to go sketch somewhere, I say to my wife, all right, this is going to take me an hour. And she says, is this a jack hour, a journaling hour, right? Right? And she'll make me set my watch so it'll go boop, 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 boop. And then when it finally goes off, you're like, there's no way that was an hour, right? But just the routine of getting out my journal and tucking it into my arm, and the sound of this sound, right? That little click, click, and then my body, it knows what's about to happen next, and it's ready just to go down that tunnel. So you can train yourself just to drop into these flow states. And it's interesting, the more you do that, the more you're actually able then to kind of hit flow states doing other sorts of things. So the more flow you get, the more flow you get. And this is where we get maximum performance, our faster learning. It's where we do our best work in sciences, in art, in sports, in computer programming, in all these sorts of things. It is an incredibly powerful thing. So we can hack flow in our nature journaling. So if you've been doing this for a while and you felt yourself kind of get into that state, you'll know it when you come out. Kind of go like, dude, I was just in a flow state, right? Figure out what was I doing, and then do that again, and then do that again. And that makes this whole thing even more addictive. Right. So to help you make this whole package come together, this is why we've created the Nature Journal Club. This is your support system to get this approach to engaging with and playing with the world, to make it something that you can really make an intrinsic part of how you are living your life. So the pieces of this currently are, every month this guy is going to show up, and I've got a new workshop on a different topic. So for the next 2 months, we're going to be really doing a deep dive in drawing plans. All right? But we also want to, this is the preparation that prepares us for going out into that stimulus-rich environment, right? And we're going to do that, as you suggested, with the power of a community, right? So we want to go out there with other people doing the same thing. The Nature Journal Club is actually a critical mass of really, really fun, nice people. You're going to love them, right? The sorts of people who are attracted to this, some are biologists, some are artists, some are computer programmers, some are tradespeople, really diverse group of folks. It is all ages. Part of it is natural history. Part of it is, yeah, who's that guy? All right. It is, it's also, there's a lot of in-group sharing of ideas. JP right here is giving a little calligraphy workshop to folks in the middle of a field trip, helping them sort of explore different sorts of pens and lettering techniques. It's also a chance to, one of the most interesting ways to kind of see the potential of what you can do and to get inspiring ideas is to look at the work of other people. In school you're taught, don't copy, just do everything yourself. In the arts, it's the opposite, copy. right? Steal as many ideas as you can from everybody else. And that's why we take our journals and we put them out on tables on a regular basis, and everybody looks at what everybody else is doing, and everybody is actively stealing everybody else's best ideas. And when you do that, what you want to do is when you look at these pages, what you don't want to do is kind of go like, oh, that's wonderful. That's just lovely. Gosh, that's really good. Right? That doesn't help you. You want to instead look at it like, okay, what can I steal? Right? What is something that this person is doing that I want to try? And it gives you all sorts of ideas of different ways of doing this. There isn't one approach. And you're going to be exposed to lots of different things. And then what you do is you just absorb from all of this what is useful, what is inspiring to you, how you want to go about that yourself. And so, if I was just trying to do like one tight little portrait of something, I look at somebody else's journal and go like, oh golly, you're making a few little quick sketches. And then when the subject is more still, oh, you're developing that more. Well, I could do that. I can do that. I will do that. Right? So you intentionally steal ideas from other people. Another great place to steal ideas is on our Facebook page. If you go in, if you're on Facebook. And by the way, in joining Facebook, this doesn't mean that you have to, joining Facebook doesn't mean you have to regularly post what you're eating for breakfast. And, you can be as sort of inactive with that stuff as you want to be if you're not on it. But if you go on it, you can join the Nature Journal Club, and then you can first of all view the Nature Journal Club without being a member of it. But you scroll down this, people are posting tons of sketches and drawings and ideas that they have, and putting up questions and getting support. And when people post stuff like this, it's a wonderful way of getting support from other people. This is also where we post a lot of in-group announcements about things. Or you can even organize carpools to events. Another way of kind of finding out about what we do, on my webpage, John Muir Laws is my website, so johnmuirlaws.com. If you go to that website, there is a drop-down menu called Nature Drawing, and under that you'll find Nature Journal Club. You go there, there's schedule of events. There is, you'll find links to the videos that Ashok makes, YouTube channel that has all those videos on it if you want to see a previous workshop. There are links to all of the blog posts that relate to things that we're doing here in the Nature Journal Club. If you want to get notifications of the blog posts by email, you can just type your email address in there, or if you want to receive a monthly newsletter with all of our activities, you can do that there. So there's a lot of ways of kind of getting of kind of connecting with that online. It's also fun. There's even a bunch of folks all around the world now who are part of our Nature Journal Club, and so people, you'll get to see somebody's sending in their stuff from Italy, and you're like, oh wow, that's really really cool. It's a lot of fun. So that is sort of our Nature Journal Club. Now we want to get into making your own kit, your own system to help you do journaling in the field. One of, tell me your name?
I'm Barbara.
As Barbara was suggesting, so Barbara's a writer. Barbara has writing supplies all around her house and in her car to make her tools really accessible to you. Right? You can also have sketching journaling kits all over the place, or you can have one that's very portable and you just bring with you everywhere. But being intentional about making that kit is extremely helpful. As I mentioned before, if you have to rummage around the house to get all your art supplies together, every time you do that, that's negative reinforcement, and that's going to make it less likely that you will go out into the field with, you're just like, oh, forget it today, right? Or if I'm hiking along the trail and I say to myself, oh, I'd like to draw that bird. That's great. Oh, what neat, a bird. So I'm going to take off my backpack and put my backpack down, open it up. I'm going to move the water. I'm going to move the poncho and my lunch, get out the sketchbook, open up the, by this time the bird has flown away. But if I'm walking around out there and I say, oh, check that out. It's a bird. I think I would like to draw that bird. Okay. And then, when I'm done, if it's this easy to put it away, I'm going to be doing that all the time. So I find, actually, rather than having the stuff in a backpack, a little shoulder bag is great. And the idea with this is you keep it as lightweight as possible. You only put in what you really use and what you really need. And you're regularly going to go into it and remove the things that you're not regularly using. Because it will tend to just sort of become a repository for like, oh, I got a cool eraser that I never use. Well, I'll put that in my sketch bag. Right? So and if it gets too heavy, you're going to leave it at home. So this is a Chico bag. This kind of shoulder bag here, I sell these on my website. I also have some in the back of my car if people want to pick these up. What I like about it is it's a really lightweight bag. So the whole thing doesn't weigh very much. It doesn't need a padded shoulder strap because if this starts to hurt my shoulder, I'm carrying too much stuff. Right? It's also, it's made locally. This is made in Chico by Chicoans. Real Chicoans. Chicoites. Cheeklets. My sketching system fits all in here. Different people are going to have different systems that work for them. So no two people are alike. Right? So don't think you're supposed to get a system that matches mine. Right? All right, so here's John's. All right. So John's is a smaller bag than mine. All right. But he's got a system that he doesn't have to futz around in here to get his hand on the tools that he likes to use. And this is pretty cool. He's got a rubber band here, so in case he's in a windstorm, right? And look, John is sketching all the time, all right? This journal, because it's so accessible, becomes an essential part of how he travels and explores and sees the world. And so your homework is you're going to make your own, thank you very much. You're going to make your own nature journal kit. And it's going to look different for each person, all right? But you're going to have the tools in there that you like, that you want to bring, in a way that will be accessible and easy for you to use. So here's just a few examples of how they can look differently. All right, this character here, this is Dave, and Dave doesn't have a bag. Everything fits in his pocket. He just has big pockets on his jacket. I don't know what he does on a hot day. All right, but here's what his kit is: a few pencils, a little journal, and a bag to put his pencil shavings in. All right. But because it's so small, he's got it all the time. A disadvantage of a really tiny journal is that it forces you to, you don't really have a lot of room to sort of let your ideas spread out. Having more room on the page for a drawing or to put a number of associated ideas down, you're trying to write something. If you had to do it in just a bunch of little snippets, you can put down an idea, but you want to be able in your writing to connect ideas together. The same thing is true on the page in the journal. Here is a woman who likes to draw with colored pencils, watercolor pencils. So she's taken her pencils, sort of put a limited number of colored pencils together with, kind of tied them together with rubber bands, sort of similar color groups. She can easily grab the pencil that she wants. You have too many pencils in there, you spend too much time going, is it this green or this green or this green or this green or this green? Right? If you have 30 shades of green, you're not actually happier. This is a serious case of less is more. All right? Kristen likes to do watercolor. And her kit changes over time. Right now, she has a kit that is actually even fewer colors than this. It fits into a very, very small space. But very small, efficient, practical thing. If you really get into it and you like playing with lots of different mediums, you're so into it that you will bring that with you everywhere, you can get a kit that's a little bit larger. This is kind of neat. It's bright red, so she's never going to lose it under a tree. She tries to get, Lori tries to get all the different pieces. When she can kind of get like a red pencil sharpener, she will. I think that's a really interesting idea. The disadvantage, of course, of red is that it might scare some birds away. They can see red and they can see you coming. So there's a choice with that. But she has more tools in there, but she still wants to really keep them organized so that she can put her hand on the tool that she wants with a minimum of fussing around. Right? You want to go to how, for a quick draw journal, how much time is there between, oh, I have the impulse to kind of have my tool in my hand, and then it's in my hand and I'm doing something with it, and then I can put it away. My kit is a combination of nature study sorts of things, rulers and tape measures and magnifying glasses and little pocket knives and bug boxes, and a few pencils and binoculars. My kit will change over time, but these are sort of my kind of essentials. So you want to pick the kit, develop the kit that is right for you. You probably don't need to buy anything new. Probably lying around your house from the umpteen different art classes you've taken are the tools that you want, and you're going to be good to go with that. I do recommend that people go for a journal that is as large as you will realistically easily bring with you. I think once you get larger than 8.5 by 11, it's hard to put in a lot of bags. But go for it. If you only will bring a tiny one, then bring a tiny one. But if you can go larger than that, go larger. So go as large as you will realistically, regularly bring with you. All right. So a little bit of show and tell. Does anybody have any tools with them today in their kit, who brought their kit, that you can share with other folks? Anything that you find particularly cool? Oh, you bet. So a couple of things here. Notice this pencil bag. She took the pillowcase holder, and it makes for a transparent bag, so she's not hunting around in it. She can see it. Isn't that nice? Makes you want to get a new pillow, doesn't it? All right. So another thing that she's got is this little slide frame with a piece of red theater lighting gel in it. And when you put this up to your eyes, it turns the whole world into black and white. Well, actually, black and red. That's a great way of helping you visualize values on things. So it's a really great value finder. I can look at the relative darks and lights in the landscape in front of me, and then look down and compare that with my drawing. And I'm not confused by color when I do that.
I mostly use it as a frame for composition.
That's a great thing to do too. All right.
Landscape.
So you can zoom in on things by going out this way. It gives you a smaller area of field. Or you can zoom out by bringing it closer. You can really do a lot of neat composition things with this. Turns out that a lot of sketchers spend less time composing their drawing than photographers do. Photographers will look around the landscape and kind of go like, oh yeah, that's, and they're really thinking about composition. Very often, sketchers are looking around the landscape looking for a comfortable place to sit. Right? Because they know they're going to be there for a while. And they actually spend less time composing. So this helps you kind of pause and compose. That's a really great couple of neat things. Anybody else have some fun things to share?
Rubbing, doing rubbings.
Ooh.
I was a land surveyor, and there's a lot of monuments out there, and I like to take rubbings of them into my book.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to...
So those are waxy, they don't smear.
So this is not going to smudge and smear. He was a land surveyor, and he has this wad of wax. He can do a bark rubbing. He can do a rubbing on a...
Mostly a brass disc.
those little...
You
So the survey points. Yeah. So what a great idea. You can also do rubbings of leaves, right? You can do rubbing sapsucker holes in an aspen tree. You could do a rubbing of those. Right? And then you can draw directly on top of that if you wanted to. Right? That's a really great idea. That's a really interesting idea.
Nice small square ones too.
Oh, great. Other neat things.
I use this a lot.
Ooh. So if she's looking at a plant, right, and she can put this up to it and measure the length of this thing, and then compare that down onto her piece of paper. Or if she has a track in the mud, she can get how wide it is, put dot dot on her piece of paper, how long it is, put dot dot on her piece of paper, and she's going to transfer the exact measurements from here to her piece of paper. So this is a great little measuring tool to get the exact proportions of things. Is that what you use it for?
Yes, and sometimes I'll use it and I'll decide to use a certain part of what I'm drawing and say, okay, let's say it's the head.
Mm-hmm.
How many heads is this distance, or how many half heads is this distance? And then if I draw something on my paper, then I measure the head that I drew, and then how many times that do I need to measure it out. But like you, I have significant learning disabilities, and one thing that's very difficult for me to do is to look at something and know if something is larger or smaller. And so with this, I can check it. Is this bigger than that, or is it smaller than that? And then I can draw it bigger or smaller when I try to draw it.
Yep. So that's a great sort of measuring tool. One trick on doing that, if you are, say, using part of something, like using head lengths to measure something, what you want to do when you do that, when you're measuring it, you want to make sure that your arm is always fully extended. Because if I kind of measure your head here, and then compare that to your body here, by moving my arm to a different distance, I have changed the relative proportion. So I always want to, when I'm kind of looking, the head is this, right? I want to make sure that my arm is already out at that same distance. If I am measuring things at this sort of, this many sort of degrees of arc, kind of looking at something like that, then that just holding my arm out straight works really great. If I end up looking at things that are up here at a really steep angle or down here at a really steep angle, then what I have to do is take my head and rest it over on my arm as I'm doing that. Right? Because look at the distance between my head and the measuring tool here. Right? This distance from my eye to here and here. And you see that? How it gets shorter. This is a shorter distance than this. Right? So, but most of my measuring is going to be going on in here. I just want to always lock that out. Great.
This is my first notebook from Mom.
Oh, your first notebook.
I just got her a new notebook.
Oh, isn't it?
Her other one.
Oh, so this is you've filled up your first sketchbook, and this is your new one?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's fun. And it's going to be really fun when you start to get a whole series of these. You get all your notebooks lined up along each other. All right? And your mission is to fill this one with art faster than that first one. So you just get yourself to do more and more and more and more drawing. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Well, for friends at home. There we go. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. All right. So now just yes. Oh, water brush. All right. And don't leave home without it. All right. So yeah, a couple of, for me, just sort of really kind of essential things. I've got a favorite. I have a favorite pencil that I like to draw with. I always start my drawings with a non-photo blue pencil, the erasable kind of non-photo blue pencil. You'll hear us talking about these on, and I've got some of these in the back of my car if people want to pick them up. This is a really useful tool for lightly sketching in sort of an underlying preliminary drawing. And this brush is a total game changer. When I first saw this brush that has the water inside the handle, I thought, that is a total gimmick. I'm a real artist. I couldn't use something like that. But now I use these things not just in the field for all the drawings. If you look at any of the books that I've published, the Sierra Nevada one, all those, this is the only kind of brush that is used in all those books. I'm just a total addict to these things. And what we'll often do, you can spot people in the Nature Journal Club pretty easily because they're the people who are walking around with an old sock on their wrist, because we will get our paint wet and we'll paint with it. When we want to change colors, we just give it a squeeze and we wipe it on that sock. So you'll see people with little chunks of old socks walking around. And I think I've got some old socks in the back of my car too, if you need them. Just make sure that you don't have one of the bristles locked out, wobbled out to the side as you put the cap back on. And listen to this. Oh, we couldn't hear it. There's a little, you want to push it until sort of get a little snap. And the caps stay on pretty well. Thank you very much, John.
About 15 years old.
I found this size bottle works really well with those brushes.
Oh,
It's convenient for throwing in your bag.
for refilling those little.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
It's very flat and it's just not so bulky.
Yeah, but can you get it through TSA? Right. So now just a few little last logistics to make your journaling a little bit easier. My first thought is, when you are out there nature journaling, you want to take good care of yourself. Right? That means protect yourself from the sun. Bring snacks to eat. Wear sunscreen if you are more fair-skinned. I love this. I call this the RLH. This is the RLH, the ridiculously large hat. All right? I got this at a gardening supply store, the only place where they seem to think that people really want ridiculously large hats. And it's great because when you're sketching out in the sun, you've got your own personal eclipse. And when you rock your head down to draw, the sun doesn't hit the back of your neck. So nice. Your whole paper gets shaded by the ridiculously large hat. So consider that during the summertime. When winter rolls around, bring a warm coat. Dress it like an onion. Dress in layers. So if it gets hotter, you can take one off and dump it in your backpack. You will find that if you are cold or really hot or something like that, you will not want to sketch. You will not want to journal. And it's not, you'll be thinking like, oh man, I guess I'm a journal wimp. Like I should be like tougher than this. And nobody like you wants to do that when you're really cold. So you've got this sort of Maslow kind of hierarchy of needs, and if your creature comforts aren't taken care of, your brain doesn't have the energy to kind of get your journal on. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
For once, I do know that I have a hat that has kind of like a flap that goes around your neck, so it doesn't like sunburn your neck, and it has a really big part around here, so it shades a bit over my head, and if I'm holding a book, it shades that book.
Oh, great.
And it also shades your neck because that flap covers your neck.
Excellent.
No matter what.
Yeah, those little beau geste hats, kind of French Foreign Legion style, that is a great way of preventing the sunburn on your neck. If you are going out there and you've got fair skin, sunscreen, a really good idea. Make sure you get the tops of your ears if you have short hair, and places where your skin is thinner up against bones, places where we tend to get melanomas. In here, and the tops of our ears are what we always forget to do, and that's a really big melanoma place. So if you kind of look at where people get melanomas, make sure you kind of goop your sunscreen up there. So another thing that's really important, I want to stress the importance of having fun. All This is a joyful activity. And get yourself out there. Just let yourself romp and delight and play with it. The more fun you have, the more you will do. Right? It really motivates us to do it again and again and again. Has anybody here ever brought your journaling stuff with you on a hike? And you put all this stuff in your backpack and you tromped down the trail. And at the end of the day, you took your backpack off and you realized you never got that stuff out once. Anybody? All right. Really easy to do. We are creatures of habit. If you spend the first part of the day not sketching and journaling, that's probably how you're going to spend the second part of the day. But the reverse of that is true. If at the start of the day you make just a couple little quick sketches, you'll probably be making sketches all the way down the trail. So the trick is when you arrive in the parking lot and your friends are kind of filling water bottles and that sort of stuff, just get your journal out, pop it out, because it's easy for you to get out, and just kind of look up, oh, look, the moon is a crescent. Draw a little crescent moon, and put a little bit of shading around it, and close it, and then you held on to it. If you do that as a little kind of anchor, you'll be sketching for the rest of the day. Or you find kind of a cool little bug. You can make a little drawing of that bug. Some little thing just to kind of break in that piece of paper. Another thought that really helps you with logistics and kind of getting around the problems we have with our inner critic is it turns out that your brain likes to warm up with sketches just like you warm up with exercise. The first few sketches you do of the day, your brain, the connection between your eye and your hand through your brain is a little bit fuzzy. To crisp that up, just make a few little sketches. So the first sketches, expect them to kind of come out funky. What happens for some of us is people will make one sketch and they'll kind of like, I didn't like the way that turned out. That's the warm-up. But they didn't like the way that warm-up turned out, so they close their book and they put it back and they go, I guess I'm off today. Right? So it's just like pancakes. You have to make, the first batch off the griddle are the sacrificial pancakes. Right? The same is true here. The first sketches, those are your sacrificial pancakes. So at the start, just make a few, just make a few little sketches and just realize that these are my sacrificial pancakes. I do not have to expect them to, I'm not expecting them to kind of work as a drawing here. It's just they're going to make the way for the rest. If you never made those sacrificial pancakes, you'd never have breakfast. Right? Ah. So did we have any sound in that? Right. But now we're clear again. All right. So, and my last thought is we're just going to sort of pause a moment and think about how we're going to hold our equipment, hold our gear. If you are out in the field and you have a sketchbook and you are trying to draw on it, it's wobbly and it's hard to draw. Right? So the trick is, put your arm diagonally across. If it's something that folds over on itself, you put your arm diagonally across it, holding the corner, and then you press that into your body, and that actually makes a really good, solid drawing surface. Right? So I can then stand and sketch. Or if I am sketching out there in the field, right? Pressing that into your body makes a big difference. If you've got one that opens with a sort of sewn-in binding, I find it really helps to lock, to sort of put one part of the side of the book up here, press the book into you, and you've got another good drawing surface. Lastly, this is a great strategy for drawing through binoculars. Drawing through binoculars takes a little bit of sort of intentionality about how you're going to make this work. Because essentially you need two hands to hold your binoculars, and then in your other hand you're going to hold your pencil, and in your other hand you're going to have your sketchbook, right? Which is great if you're Shiva, but for the rest of us, it's a challenge. So this posture right here works really, really well. What you do is you put your sketchbook down on your lap, you brace your, in your kind of non-drawing hand. This only, by the way, works with lightweight binoculars. You put your elbow on your knee, you brace your binocular arm on your knee, and you press your hand lightly against the side of your head. And so your binoculars aren't wiggling around. So you can sketch and look, which, because you have your arm braced on your knee and against your head, you don't need both hands holding those binoculars. If you are regularly kind of coming back to two hands on your binoculars, there's a real danger of doing this. All right? Don't do this. This is a bad idea. Right? So, you've got, you're sitting on the ground, your sketchbook on your thigh, your binoculars, you can look through your binoculars and sketch, look through your binoculars and sketch. And that works really, really well. So there's a few little logistics of creating our kit, of holding your sketchbook, some thoughts about how to motivate yourself to get over some of the humps that usually that get us to put the journal down or put it back up in that box in the closet. You can do this. Drawing is not a gift. Journaling is not a gift, it's a skill. And you develop all skills just by doing it again and again and again and again. The more you do, the better you're going to get at it. All right? It's a completely learnable skill. And the difference is how regularly you practice that. Now, there are lots of important things to do. If you choose that, actually I want to focus my time and energy on learning to play the fiddle, that's great. That's really, really good. That's important too. But if you decide that this is something that you want to do, at the start you have to be really intentional about, I'm going to just get myself to start to draw on a more regular basis. If you draw it, it will come. I guarantee it. And give it 1 year, and you will see a radical change if you start to draw on a regular basis. And this, I'm going to suggest to you, is your year. This is your year to do it. If not now, when? Right? You can do this. You can do it. So my last question to you before you take off is, in the coming month, how many sketches are you going to make? You don't have to tell me, but I'd like each of you to decide for yourself and write that number down in a corner of your sketchbook. We're going to circle it and we're going to come back to that next month. All right? I'm going to challenge you to decide how many sketches you really do want to make. Make it a realistic goal that is something that is perhaps a little bit outside of your comfort zone. And my challenge to you is to meet your goal. You can do this. And if you want this to be something that really becomes at the start, some people will go like, yeah, it just felt a little bit forced. Yes, because it's different than what you always do. What you regularly do, it will become your new habit. And that will take care of it from there. So happy sketching. I'll see you in the field. And thanks for joining the Nature Journal Club.